use a key fob for unlocking and starting your car? If you do, you need to be aware of an increasingly popular attack that thieves are using to steal cars called a relay attack. A relay attack is where a thief can take the signal from your key fob and boost it to break into your car or steal it. Now, the most elegant and simple way to protect your car from this attack is by putting your key fob in a silent pocket key fob guard Faraday bag, which can block all wireless signal. Get yours today by picking one up at silentpocket.com. And because you listen to this podcast, take 15% off during checkout by using discount code Shared Security. So welcome everyone to episode 97 of our monthly show.
97, or as they would say in French, 97, I think, something like that.
I did not know that you know French, but you are in Canada, so
I took French from grade 2.
Yes,
onward. Fully bilingual. No, not. I am not. But,
I know there's areas of Canada that take the French language very seriously.
Oh yeah.
In fact, I think a lot of the country just wants to be French, right? Isn't that the?
Well, I mean, lots of people want to preserve their heritage. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't blame them, but
no. Reminds me when I went to Montreal, and it's walking around as an English-speaking person. I found it a little difficult.
Yeah. Which bridge did we come over? We'll just remember it. It's the Pont Bridge. Okay, so
right.
We'll go back and find the Pont Bridge. Well, that's the French word for bridge. So it's every bridge is going to say Pont.
Nice. So, very nice.
A little tricky, but yeah, you'll survive.
I did barely. So we have some topics to discuss. There's lots of things going on in the world.
There are.
No shortage of news.
Yeah. So, we could talk about Chinese hacking. We could talk about the usual hijacking of public crises by hackers to make a buck.
Yeah.
And what else?
Yeah, and then we'll talk about 8 steps to being almost completely anonymous online. And the key there is almost.
Yeah.
Because you really can't be anonymous online. You can get close, but you can't do it fully.
As the Chinese military learned this week. That's
right. And that was, I believe, that was the breaking news, actually.
Yeah.
Big news, actually. So hopefully you've seen the story. I know this is something I will cover in our weekly show because it is kind of a big deal. But the U.S. government came out and charged 4 Chinese officers with the Equifax hacking incident back in 2017.
Yeah. And I mean, there's, I love the story Brian Krebs wrote about that. Yeah. It's sort of a chronicle of, I don't know, unfortunate events, should we call them?
We can call it that. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. So that started in 2017.
Yep.
I guess it all started when they didn't patch a system, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
The Adobe struts, Apache struts. Sorry, Adobe. I'm getting my companies with big security vulnerabilities mixed up. Adobe, Apache. I mean, every day there's one of those vulnerabilities coming out.
Yeah.
So
just don't. Whatever you do, if you're starting a new company, don't make it start with an A and end in E.
Yeah, don't do that. But I mean, 147 million people had their information stolen. As we have talked about many times, I mean, one of the largest breaches in history. I believe there was even Canadians involved. So it's not just
just 400,000 of us, but it's enough.
Still, definitely. Yeah. And apparently they released a few more details in the indictment on kind of how they were hiding their identities during this hack. And they had actually routed their traffic through, it was like 34 servers located in 20 countries to kind of try to hide their location during this.
Yeah.
So, interesting.
It'd be interesting to know how the forensic guys, they're doing the investigation. Yeah. Okay, we've traced them back to 25 servers.
Yeah.
Oh, there's another one. Or proxies, right?
Yeah. What's interesting, and we have talked about this on the show before about attribution, right? And how
Yeah.
it's really hard to do. And for the US government to come out and have evidence definitely, I mean, for sure, linking the Chinese to this attack,
Yeah.
when in a world where IP addresses can be spoofed and logs can be doctored and all of those things, I mean, the evidence must be pretty damning.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to frame somebody, if you
Yeah,
wanted to make it
sure.
look like it was somebody else.
Of
So there
course.
must be multiple sources of confirmation, right? That
Right.
it is who they think it is. So
Right.
anyway, yeah.
And I mean, unfortunately, I mean, they even came out and said that highly unlikely that those 4 individuals will face any type of prosecution. And I don't think I've seen a statement yet from China. I think they're a little too busy right now, trying to control this coronavirus outbreak. But yeah, they, accusing a foreign government, and we all know for years and years, China has been hacking the United States. Russia has, and in fact, it's gone both ways, right? The U.S. government, and I'm sure the Canadian government and everyone else has their own governments doing their own cyber war.
We don't hack anybody. We're too nice.
Yeah, it's true. I would exclude Canada from any government that would hack anybody else. That never happened. No, but
yeah, it's I mean, it is a serious thing, and there are teams, I'm sure, of people in every country doing offensive and defensive hacking, right? So
yes, this is true. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Probably nothing. I did find it interesting too. There was another article I read just about, why would the Chinese government want to hack a company like Equifax, and like what's the end goal, right? And there's a lot of speculation about the Chinese just wanting to collect as much information about American citizens as possible. And one way to do that is to go through the credit agencies, right?
Yeah, sure.
They've got tons of information about pretty much every American. And that could be something maybe in the future that's used either for blackmail or for other types of cyber attacks that might want to target Americans, or fake news, right? Yep. Political season is coming up here pretty quickly. Actually, we're in it in the U.S. and
you've been in it for the last year, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the fake news is just relentless. Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see what the motive was, and of course how the Americans may want to retaliate for something like this.
I thought it was interesting. One of the things that Brian Krebs mentioned in that article was the evidence that makes them or points somewhat to the fact that it's a state-sponsored attack is that there is none of that information that was stolen is for sale on the dark web,
right?
Which is where everything goes.
Yeah,
it's of any value.
That's right. That's right. Like all these governments, they keep their secrets closely guarded, and they all sit on 0-day exploits and use high-tech hacking tools like we see with the NSO group that only sells their malware to foreign governments. It's just kind of relentless.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's coming from all directions.
So what do you think of this whole coronavirus, Scott?
That's pretty scary. I mean, you sort of think after, the SARS and H1N1 that happened over the last 10, 20 years, I think it seems like the response is better. There's a lot quicker response, better information, right, about what's going on. So you sort of figure it's under control. But I mean, the cruise ships and things are something you haven't heard of before.
No,
people stranded on a cruise ship, and a buddy of mine has a distant family member on a ship that is not being allowed to come into port anywhere.
Wow.
So it's like until it becomes an emergency, and then maritime law says the nearest country has to help. So it's like a hot potato right now.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll take the cruise ship out to a deserted island or something, and dump everybody off and say, there you go. Sorry.
Well, at least I brought my bad company record.
Yeah.
What would you take with you to a desert island?
Well, hopefully you have everything on that cruise ship, right? You've got clothes, you've got alcohol. I mean,
I heard actually a story yesterday. Somebody said there was like a drone delivery of a bottle of wine to somebody on a ship. I'm not sure how that happened, but it was like big news.
Oh, that was stuck on the ship.
Yeah,
coronavirus. Wow, that's interesting.
I don't know if it was Amazon or just some rich relative.
Yeah, they do that to prisoners. You know, prisoners actually. You've heard about those.
Here, try to get drone deliveries
of drugs and
in the middle of the night.
Yep, it happens. It happens. So now they have. There's companies that sell anti-drone technology, and they're actually putting those sensors and other things up around prisons now here in the U.S. Yeah, fascinating.
But it's got an Amazon logo on it. Must be okay.
Yeah. Always accept those.
Yeah.
But unfortunately the screen sharing doesn't work because I thought this phishing email that is in this article about what's kind of going around, and this is common, right? Whenever there's a large world health issue, natural disaster, anything like that, the scammers come out in droves, right? To try to capitalize on a really horrible situation. And the coronavirus is no exception to that. And in this one in particular, the email impersonates the World Health Organization that basically talks about safety measures regarding the spread of the virus, how to protect yourself. And of course, they ask you to click on the button to download.
Yep.
And once you click that button, well, that's pretty much all over at that point.
Yeah, it's I mean, they make it look pretty real, except the grammar is so bad.
Yeah.
But any, person that has a good command of the English language is probably not going to fall for it, but you never know.
Right. And, I mean, it's just, it's phishing awareness, right? And, a little bit about that, Scott, and that's why you founded Click Armor.
Yes.
To help with this problem.
See my Cyber Knight behind me here.
So Cyber Knight.
We were going to do a world premiere reveal of the first Click Armor phishing game, but it's not to be today.
Yeah. And we may be able to put this into the episode. So we may do some video trickery on you if you're watching the YouTube
so
edition of the podcast.
Don't close your browser yet.
No. No, don't close out of the video. There may be more you may want to listen to and we'll watch. So, but everybody be aware that, because of the seriousness of the coronavirus, don't fall for these scams that are just all over the place right now.
Yeah. And it happens every time there's a natural disaster or crisis, right? That we just got to teach people about this stuff. Yeah.
And hopefully things get better with the situation with the virus. Cause I know in China right now, it's not looking so good. They've shut down the entire country pretty much, which I don't think has that ever happened? I don't know.
I don't think so. Yeah. You see video and it's like a ghost town.
Yeah. It is. What was the movie? I'm thinking of the board game Pandemic. If you've played that game.
No, I'm not.
Very entertaining, but simulates, the viruses spreading across the world and you have to work as a team to stop them. But Contagion, I think, is the movie.
Okay.
Yeah. That it spreads from airline travelers across the world. And I think we're kind of seeing that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, with a 14-day, quarantine period,
they're saying it's even more now.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, they're saying it's up to 24 days that you could have it and be walking around without any symptoms.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Scary times.
Not good.
Not just in the cyber world.
Right. Yeah. Right. In the real world.
Imagine that the real world is scarier than the cyber world. What's it come to?
I don't know.
And now a word from our sponsor, Edgewise Networks. The biggest problem in security that remains unsolved are flat networks in cloud and data centers, with unprotected attack paths that allow threats to move laterally to cause data breaches. But microsegmentation using network addresses is complicated and takes too much time. But there's a better approach: Edgewise Zero Trust Auto Segmentation. Edgewise is impossibly simple microsegmentation, delivering results immediately with a security outcome that's provable. At the core of Edgewise Auto Segmentation is Zero Trust Identity, which allows workloads to communicate only after their software identity has been verified. Malicious or unimproved software is no longer allowed to communicate. Identity-based protection provides more coverage with fewer policies to make Edgewise simple to deploy and manage. No changes to the application or network are required. One solution protects virtual machines and containers in the cloud and on-premises. To stop lateral threat movement and prevent breaches, visit edgewise.net for a demo and to see results within minutes. So Scott, do you think you can be completely anonymous online these days?
Well, apparently the Chinese military couldn't after 24
No.
or 37 proxies jumped over. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of good tips that we can give on how to make yourself more private online and anonymous. But
Yeah.
I think Kevin Johnson put it really well, I think, one time, right? He says, if you're trying to, protect your privacy against the NSA, forget about it, because they already know what you're doing. But you can protect your privacy against, commercial entities or people around you.
That's right.
If they're snooping on you. But yeah,
absolutely. And we'll link this in our show notes. I thought it was a really good article that I found on CSO Online called 8 Steps to Being Almost Completely Anonymous Online. And that the key word there is almost, right? Because anybody that tells you that you can be 100% anonymous, 100% private while you're using the internet is lying to you, because it just does not exist. You can get pretty close, but there's always little bits of information that you're naturally going to leave. That is called metadata, right? And so as much as someone tries to cover their tracks, eventually, and this is how all the greatest hackers and all of these, foreign Chinese hackers and everybody's getting caught, is because they are leaving little bits of information, even when they are trying to hide their real identity.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to do. As I said, I think before, it's as easy to frame somebody online, to make someone look like they were involved in an activity. It's almost easier to do that than to completely hide yourself.
That's right. That's right. So, yeah, I think it's a good article. We'll kind of go through. I'll go through the 8 things that they mentioned, because I think it's worthy just kind of discussing. But first they say use Signal if you want to securely communicate to somebody else. We've talked about Signal many times on the show. It is kind of the recommended end-to-end encryption application that can be used for communication.
And Tom and I are both on it, so we can.
We are.
If you join, right, you can become our friend.
Yep, that's right. And or if you want to send secret messages to Scott and I, that would be the way to do it. Yes. But they do make a comment about that there is still metadata with even Signal, right? Even though your message and your phone call, your video chat may be encrypted and somebody can't access what you're specifically saying, there is enough metadata that, if the US government or another organization with a lot of money and power is looking at, your communication stream between 2 Signal users, they can easily find out, first of all, who you're talking to. They know you're talking to somebody. They know you're using Signal. They know what time. They know when. That's usually enough information to put 2 and 2 together. If they can get other bits of information, sometimes they can even determine, they may even know what you're talking about, even though they don't have the context of what it is, right?
Yeah. True.
So definitely something to keep in mind. And then the second one is using Tor. So we've talked about Tor on the show before. Tor is one of those things that has a really good use, and it has a negative and evil use, right? So this is the tool, this is the browser that someone would use to go onto the dark web to access the onion sites, which they obviously are a lot of bad sites out there. Like you could buy drugs and all kinds of other things. But it's also used by people that are, legitimately have concerns about their own privacy because they may be targeted. So think of human rights defenders or journalists or, other people that might be targeted by others. It is a really good way to stay more private because it routes all of your traffic through different nodes. And it really is kind of the best tool out there that's available to kind of hide browsing if you're going to certain sites.
So they can still monitor the exit nodes, but
Correct.
They don't really know where the traffic originated, or they can't correlate it with where it started, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Now there have been cases in the past where the FBI, I know in the US, has actually convinced like people that they are monitoring and trying to track or have a case against, or trying to build evidence against somebody. They have been known to, send phishing emails and install malware on their computers, which then basically you can throw Tor out the window at that point, because, if you have a keylogger or something on your computer, even if you're using Tor, your information is compromised, right? So, there's a lot of backdoor approaches that I think governments take to see what you're doing on Tor, but it usually doesn't involve the traffic itself, because it's very hard to do that.
Yep. Yeah. That's a good point.
Yep.
So good recommendation.
Yep. And number 3, I like this one. Don't expect a VPN to be anonymous, right? We've talked about this before many times. Don't trust VPN completely, because all you're doing is just transferring the risk to another third party, right? So if if the government or somebody else is trying to find out what you're doing, they're just going to go to that VPN provider. They're going to issue a warrant, and they're going to get the information that way. And even when these providers say they don't keep any logs, most likely they are still keeping some type of metadata, right? Of, where this traffic went, from where, maybe not who, but again, it's usually enough for somebody doing an investigation to put things together based on that metadata.
Yep. True.
And number 4 I like too is use zero knowledge services. So they mention companies like Google, Microsoft, Office 365, Dropbox, all of these other, kind of cloud storage companies. And, again, metadata and the fact that you're using these services that are, a lot of them are free, it comes with a cost, right? Those are also services that some of them have had big privacy issues in the past. Google, I mean, we talk about that all the time.
It's in their interest to not be too bad, but they do make their money from selling ads and indexed information about people. So.
Right, exactly. So, if you really do if you are concerned about your privacy and staying anonymous, you probably shouldn't be using a Google service for anything important, right? Including like email, Gmail, those types of things. There are more secure options, like for
even
email.
The Chrome browser, right?
Yeah. The Chrome browser has also had a lot of privacy related issues lately as well. So, I personally recommend Firefox as my browser of choice. I think they just have a better stance on privacy. I mean, they're not perfect. No browser is perfect, but that's what most privacy minded people will recommend.
Yep. Yeah.
And for email, there are more secure email solutions. If you are concerned about your privacy, you may want to use something like Proton Mail, which is, fully encrypted email that they'll even say if you lose the password to your Proton Mail account, you've lost all your email. Like nobody can get into it except for you. So good stuff there.
Nice.
Number 5 is be careful what you post online. I think this is a given, right?
Yeah.
We talk about this a lot. Consider the things that you post on social media as public, even though you think you're sharing it to a very small or select group of friends, trusted friends. Just to remember, people have this wonderful thing on our cell phones called screenshots, and those screenshots can easily make their way outside of your little protected group. So
yeah.
Not everything is private on social media.
Yeah, it is hard though, because it's hard to tell what ends up being posted. Like you said, you take, there were breaches of people's pics because they thought they were staying on their phone, but the syncing mechanisms, right, put them in iCloud. Right? So
yeah,
it's almost as bad as posting. You're not allowing the data to be public according to your understanding of the agreement, but doesn't mean they can't be hacked, right? So.
Right. Exactly. So think about oversharing. It's a big problem these days. Everybody, I see just a lot of friends and family and others that just, share, I just say information that probably shouldn't go out to the public like that, because there's things that you say, or, especially in this like heated, politically charged environment we live in now, sometimes things are taken out of context, and it's just pretty crazy.
I always find it kind of interesting. There are people who live very public lives, right? Like, and don't really seem to care about it. Steve Wozniak or Leo Laporte, right? They just sort of seem to post everything about what they're doing, and they just accept the risk of their stuff being public, and they can't really afford to have a private life, right? It's just, you can't hide stuff if you're that public. So
exactly. So number 6 is check those app permissions. So, looking at the privacy settings on your mobile device and what your applications are actually doing. So, do your apps actually need access to your microphone or your Bluetooth or your wireless? Operating systems like, Android and Apple iOS have gotten a lot better in the last like 2 years, where they are now prompting you and letting you know what these apps are doing. So, don't just click through because you want to use the app. I mean, literally read it and see what it says, because you might be surprised what some of these apps are trying to access and do with your information.
And I think there's another risk I learned about from a buddy who's actually doing a startup or a company there, where there seems to be a lot of data residing. You think you've deleted an app off of a device, and there's still, I don't know if the data remains on the device, but anything that you had in the account that you would set up for that app is still around somewhere. And so there's actually a solution out there now to try and help you wipe that information when you delete an app. But you got to think about all those things, not just the permissions that you're giving the app, but what data you're sharing with the app itself, which again may not stay on your device. It's likely not to. Likely
not. Yep. Number 7, use an ad blocker. Absolutely. I agree 100%. And there are actually 2 ad blockers that I've recommended that I use personally. One is called uBlock Origin, which is a fantastic ad blocker. It's free and open source. And then the other one that I use is EFF's Privacy Badger.
Oh, yeah.
Which is also good. And you can actually run both of those at the same time. They can both be installed and working, and it really does reduce the amount of ads, as well as a lot of the information that your browser sends out about you and your browsing habits. So, and doesn't cause any type of slowdown either. It's amazing what you see. I mean, the browsers, I guess, are getting a little better than they used to be, but I mean, there used to be megabytes of data for every page you loaded, right? From trackers. Yep. It's gotten a lot better. So definitely use ad blockers if you're concerned about your privacy. And then the last one here is dump your home assistant. This is a little controversial. They specifically called out the Ring cameras, and those things, the Amazon Echoes and the Google Homes and all those things. And I think it's really because the author just maybe have something against them because of all the privacy issues that have come up in, the last year or so of, third-party contractors listening in on conversations to make the assistant better, right? To improve the keyword searching and all these other things. And of course, I think there's always that risk. And Ring, of course, has had its own privacy issues, except for, the controversy over the weak passwords. Everybody's, Ring cameras are being hacked. All of that in the news lately. And that really isn't Ring's fault per se, because they do now have two-factor authentication, which of course we always recommend you implementing. But, I think this is one case of make your own decision, right? Know what's risky, what isn't. If you're okay having a Ring camera to surveil your neighborhood because maybe you have an issue with package thefts, or you live in a neighborhood that could benefit from having home surveillance cameras, because it might help out. I always think of what if somebody, if there was a crime that happened right in front of my house or at my neighbor's house, I would want the police. I'd freely give them the video from my Ring, because I think that's part of making the neighborhood a little bit safer.
I think you and I talked about a couple of years ago an idea that I had. I was trying to figure out how to commercialize it, but it was basically sort of like a neighborhood watch videos. Right. Everybody would have a video, and the video would get collected, but it would be encrypted, and it would need 2-party or 3-party keys, right? Split keys or different authentication before it would ever be could be assembled again. So I think that could work for in the case of a real law enforcement emergency or whatever. But I mean, it's not evolving that way, right? I think it's interesting how it evolved. You couldn't really ever predict the fact that so many people with doorbell phones all of a sudden become a surveillance network. But it's interesting.
It is. And and that would have been probably a better approach because of all the controversy with the police departments were trying to get, it was almost like backdoor access. I think they shut this whole program down, but it was something that I think had really good intentions of sure, if the police can access surveillance cameras of civilians, installing them outside their house, I mean that's a huge benefit to stopping crime. But there's also the privacy concerns. And I think if they did something what you were talking about some secure method, authorization being done, because right now it's more of the cop shows up at your house, sees that you have a Ring camera and like, hey, there was a crime down the street or across the street. Do you mind if you gave us your Ring footage? And I think most people would. Yeah.
And I mean, it's easy to try and design the ultimate system, as secure with, multiple controls on it. But in the end, the government comes along with a big enough check for the company, like they did with RSA, to $10 million or whatever it was they paid them to just leave the weak version of one of the elliptic curve ciphers as the default.
Right.
So things like that do happen. So
yes, it does. Yes, it does.
But I have a real problem with this Home Assistant thing because I don't have one.
Oh,
I can't dump it. I have a Ring camera, but I don't call that a Home Assistant. It just shows me if somebody's at the door. But
exactly.
And actually, you don't have to subscribe to the video storage, right? I mean, it'll tell you if somebody's there and you can see it live, but
you just won't save it to the cloud. For future retrieval.
So I think that's pretty harmless for the most part.
Yeah, I find the neighborhood alert feature interesting because you get all kinds of interesting things of and it happens just based on the season too, right? Like there's around Halloween time, you've got the door ditch kids that ring doorbells and then or they leave something stupid at somebody's front door, run away. And, now, right now there's coyotes in the neighborhood. So, everybody's posting coyote videos and, hide your kids, hide your kittens. And, coyote's going to steal them.
Up here, it's the snowplows going by at 4 in the morning.
Right. Or that. And were those fireworks out there? What's that noise? Just interesting to me. The neighborhood drama just unfolds on those Ring cameras.
Yep. Yeah.
Good times.
Anyways, so it's only going to get more connected, more a little bit harder to be anonymous.
Yeah, pretty soon will be like a Black Mirror episode. Have you seen that show, Scott?
I think I saw the first episode.
Okay.
It creeped me out so much I don't think I'm going to watch it anymore. But
yeah, you need to watch that whole series. I highly recommend it because what I like about it is it's just like, like the technology they're talking about is either it exists right now in kind of a infant form, right? It's just kind of starting out. But after the show, you're like, this actually could happen because we're not that far off from having technology or, moving social media and other things into this, crazy world. But it's almost like realistic, which is
yeah. I guess just one other thing that I saw a debate recently about privacy around, I guess there's a decision in a court about IP addresses not being considered personal information. Did you hear about that?
No,
I'm not sure if it was in Canada or in the States, but there was a court that ruled that IP addresses weren't considered to be sensitive information, and therefore they could be subpoenaed or requested by law enforcement. And it really made me think of the other day when I was driving down the highway and I passed a car that had a logo of a parking company, Indigo. I don't know if they're down in the States, but there's in Canada. And it was, a compact car, but it had 2 of those license plate reader cameras on the roof.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I remember you and I talked about this years ago, the license plate readers in the parking garages recording everybody's license plates. And so that was a privacy issue then. But I'm thinking, okay, these guys are driving along the highway with those cameras. They could be collecting all of the license plates of everybody on the highway, right? So you really have no expectation of privacy. There's no way they can ask you for permission to record it. I mean, they probably shouldn't have those things on without your permission, but who's going to stop them, really?
Right. Exactly. Isn't IP address protected as part of GDPR? I thought it was.
Good question. I do not know, but could cause some conflicts.
Yeah.
But in general, I think, if you're observable in public space, then whatever is observable is really not considered sensitive. And if you're driving on the information highway, your IP address is like your license plate.
Yeah. It is kind of like using a camera out in public too, right?
Yep.
I mean, you could be walking down the street in a public place and take pictures, and that is your right. I mean, nobody can say you can't.
It was interesting. It also reminds me there was a movie out recently. It was a Bombshell, the one about the NBC scandal with the sexual harassment and all that stuff. I don't know if you remember. So it was the story of the Fox News.
Was it Matt Lauer?
Well, no, Matt Lauer was the one with the morning show. It's a show on Apple TV Plus. But the movie itself, called Bombshell, was about more or less about the Fox News. It actually had names, right? So it had Megan, and Greta, or I can't remember all.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So there was one scene in that where the paparazzi was trying to take pictures of one of the anchors in her hotel room somewhere down in the vacation resort, and she said, "Close the door. They can't publish the picture if the door's closed, right? Like if there's a window in the door and they can actually take a picture of them through the window, they can't publish that."
Oh, interesting.
Unless the door is actually open. I just caught that line that she said that during that scene, and I'm going, "Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize they had that sort of a code of ethics."
Yeah. No, not that
law. Maybe it's a law. Yeah. We have to look it up. Anyway, that's my
good stuff.
Pop culture reference for the day.
I like it.
Otherwise, what's going on with you these days, Tom?
Yeah, busy. I will be at the RSA conference in 2 weeks. So, which is in San Francisco. I will be working the Veracode booth. So if you are at the RSA conference, stop by in the Expo Center. I'll be there.
Yeah. Go up and ask Tom, so can you teach me how to hack things?
And please don't ask me that. I will not be able to do that at RSA.
I've probably told this story before, but the only RSA I ever went to, I think it was in 2000 or 2001. And it was just when Kevin Mitnick had gotten out of jail.
Oh, okay.
He was sort of a guest of honor at that number of events. And one of them, it was a cruise around San Francisco Bay, and he was like a guest speaker on this cruise that this company had set up. And he talked about how during this show, he went up to Bruce Schneier's book stand where he was trying to sell books. And he says, "You got any books on hacking? I want to learn how to hack." and Bruce didn't recognize him.
Oh, that's funny.
As like the world's most infamous hackers.
Yeah.
Moniker now. But anyway, Bruce was trying to talk him out of getting into that line of work. But he just thought it was funny.
That's funny. Yeah, this is my first time at RSA because I have I actually tried to speak many years ago at RSA, and I got rejected twice. And the feedback I had was that my talks were too much hacking in the talks.
Could be weaponized.
Well, yeah, and this is back when RSA was very much a business conference, right? And so I was trying to inject some hacker culture into the business conference because I was speaking at Black Hat and DEF CON and more of the hacker conferences. I thought, Kevin Johnson and I could go and speak at the big RSA conference, and I never made it. So for years I was
held a grudge ever since.
Yeah, for years I was like, this conference, I'm never going to speak here, I'm never going, and then now my company is like, we're going to need you to go to RSA. I'm like, okay, I'm going to RSA.
Somebody else is paying, right? So.
It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, maybe next year I'll be able to afford a boondoggle like that, but we'll see.
Yeah. Click Armor takes off, and all all that investment money comes in. I mean, you're going to have to, be at the conferences sooner or later.
Yeah. So this is where we say, stay tuned, because Tom may or may not have a clip of the world premiere of Click Armor demo.
That's right.
Sneak peek. We'll be probably recording that separately because we just discovered we can't do it on Get Vocal.
We may find another way to do it, like simulcast it, and it may not be on Get Vocal, but we'll find a way if we don't get the recording. So
we know everybody's waiting with bated breath.
Yes, that's right.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all we had on the agenda for today, but you should really follow Tom, follow the Shared Security Podcast on Twitter. It's pretty informative. I don't know how Tom finds all the time, but there's so many stories that are interesting there.
Yeah, I just I have an app that I use called Buffer that I find interesting stories, and I just put them into the buffer, if you will, and they automatically go out on Facebook and Twitter. So pick your poison. If you're hanging out on Facebook, check us out on. We have a page that all those updates are posted. Same thing on our Twitter feed as well. So join the conversation. We've actually had some good debates and conversation over some of the articles and news that I've posted.
That's right, and won't be long, probably before the next year's podcast awards come out. And where did we rank? Like they're the Security Podcast Awards, right? We've come out like 13th out of I don't know how many.
Well, it depends who's judging, but but we do get on some of the top podcast lists, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
top 35, top 10, whatever. I don't think there's any official. We've never won any awards, so
well.
There's always a possibility, but if someone wants to nominate us for an award, we would be very grateful.
Yes, we might even show up.
Maybe, or not, virtually.
We would definitely virtually show up.
That's right.
That would be a snub if we didn't.
Yes. All right.
All right. Well, let's end this before it gets too silly. But great to see you again, Tom.
Yeah,
and
same.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. We will hopefully not have scary stuff next time, but we do hope to see you and tell you what's happened.
That's right. All right. See you next month, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.